From the WNIN TriState Public Media Center in downtown Evansville, I'm David James, and this is 2 Main Street. So here's today's menu. We have crop circles, a strange geologic formation, a totem depicting a Native American icon, the tornado of 1925, and the legend and lore of southwestern Indiana. My guest is Charlie Kiesel, educator, freelance writer, photographer. He shares his passion for history and research these days, hosting lectures at libraries in the Evansville area, with his home base being the Princeton Library. Charlie Kiesel continues his public speaking despite a nagging voice disorder called spasmodic dysphonia, which causes involuntary spasms in the muscles of the larynx. This causes the voice to break with a strained or strangled sound. So, Charlie, welcome to 2 Main Street. Now, before we dive into these topics, including some great unsolved mysteries, let's tackle spasmodic dysphonia. When did you notice there was a problem with your speech, Charlie?
It was probably about 15 years ago, and it developed kind of slowly, like I had laryngitis. And I'm about due for another Botox injection down at Vanderbilt. Do that every 6 months, so it's getting tight again. Normally I have a normal voice. And but anyway, it took me about 6 years before I decided to find out what was wrong. I went up to Cleveland Clinic and had a guy up there with 20 years experience, PhD. Took him 15 minutes to figure out I had spasmodic dysphonia. They don't know what causes it, but it's a problem between the brain and the vocal cord, the tension. And I get Botox injection in the throat and the muscles of the vocal cords, and for about 5 months, I'll have a normal voice, and then it starts getting tight again. It started like getting a slow Charlie horse, and it gets tighter and tighter. It makes it harder to speak. So that's what I ended up doing. I've been going to Vanderbilt now. Dr. Garrett, very good. She got 400 patients from the Midwest, and every Friday she has people going in about every 5 minutes for the Botox injection. So it's an interesting process.
Well, I know I had Beth Sweeney, a former TV news anchor, on my program, and we talked about her struggle with spasmodic dysphonia. She also goes to Vanderbilt and gets those Botox injections, so I guess that's the place to go if you have this issue.
Not too many people that do that. I actually got 400 patients, and I've met people there from Newburgh, Boonville, in the little waiting room about this size. And it's interesting. They don't do that now with the COVID, but that's what they did. We sit there and talk. Some of them have terrible voice problems. There's some people have to go every 3 weeks.
Really?
And they inject one side, and they can only do one side at a time with that person because of choking on her own saliva.
Oh, really?
So she goes, I couldn't see going every 3 weeks. That's bad enough every 6 months, but I appreciate it, you know.
Now, what does the Botox do?
It relaxes the muscles, you know, just lets them relax. And for a while, about 2 weeks, you have a very breathy voice because it relaxes them too much, and then your voice comes back. And you got a normal voice. And it's changing a little bit. I've been going down there about 10 years, 12. And I went down about a year ago. It was amazing. She gave me the Botox. I left the hospital. Driving home, I had the voice I had 30 years ago. My voice was perfect.
Isn't that amazing?
For 2 days. Then it went back.
Oh, my gosh.
You know, at very first, I got a very breathy voice, and then I couldn't believe it. I thought I was cured.
Sure.
But it came right back. I mean, I could not believe it. That had never happened in all the injections.
So you learn to live with it and manage it.
Well, yes. And conditions, you know, make it, if I get on the phone, it's worse. If I'm in a noisy environment, it's worse. It's, you know, something is a mystery.
Well, you continue to your lectures, I know, and you have really a passion for the mysteries of southwestern Indiana.
Yep.
And you've been researching, I know, among many things, crop circles. Of course, those little strange patterns that appear overnight in farm fields. Now, in June of 2006, I believe you stepped into a wheat field near the Huntingburg Airport. So, Charlie, what did you see there?
Well, I don't know how I heard about it, but Travis McQueen, I believe his name, the airport manager, he was flying into the airport. He saw the crop circle there right by the airport. And my wife and I went up to see if we could find it. Well, we didn't know where to look. And they'd already harvested the wheat. So I said, well, let's go back the next day. Went up the next day. There were scientists there, investigating. And they found out, well, for one thing, 80% are man-made.
Yeah, I understand. Most of them are hoaxes.
Yeah, but there are some with strange properties. And so we got up there and we talked to them, interviewed them. There was a doctor, PhD, and came down from Michigan. And Jeff Wilson, he came in from Ohio. He had a master's in general science, so they were after radiation checking and all. So he came to the conclusion that that one was likely not man-made. It had radiation levels higher. There were some changes in the wheat, so that one was declared possibly a real thing.
So if it's not man-made, who made it?
Yeah, that's the problem. That's the real problem. Came up one of the best theories I saw was some kind of electrical vortex coming down from the sky and into the crop. I don't know. I have no answers, but it's a curious thing to study. It's interesting. You don't know what you'll find.
Well, I understand that a lot of crop circles started appearing in England, in rural England, and they like several of them there, and that's been kind of like the hotbed, I guess, for crop circles for years.
Yeah, you don't hear of anything much anymore in the United States, but England has always had them. There are a lot of crop circle makers there.
Okay.
And even some of them report seeing balls of light in the field while they're making them. And there's something about the underground aquifers there that they think maybe attracts the electrical vortex. That's the best we can come up with. Some people say UFOs, but,
That's right.
That's kind of way off the chart.
Well, this area, there's a place in southern Knox County called Lucky Point. I had a guest on, and he's written a novel called The Bug Light Room, where he talks about an alien invasion in the Hoosier National Forest, which I thought was an interesting story. But then again, I started researching about this area, and there's a place called Lucky Point where folks have been seeing some strange sightings there for years. I think one report of a kind of an animal mutilation up there, strange lights, strange sounds. Even some law enforcement officials have noticed some strange sightings there. So are you familiar with Lucky Point?
Well, I heard what you heard, read, and my wife and I went up there about 7 years ago just to go there, And there was a man up there who has collected all the data, all the stories. I can't get access to them, but they're up there. And we drove out to Lucky Point, and it was we talked to some people out there, and they said they had seen the lights. And other than that, they didn't have anything else to say. But even Bigfoot was supposed to have been.
Well, that's right, Bigfoot sightings.
And I took a picture, several while we were up there. And off in the distance, I got home and looked at the photograph. I wonder if that's Bigfoot. Now, this is daytime. And I got to looking at it. Matter of fact, went up the next day to make sure that it was a Bigfoot. Well, it was still there. So it ended up being a black, dark bush that looked like a Bigfoot from far distance. So I was interested. But
now, Lucky Point, is it off the White River? Is that right?
It's kind of east of Vincennes and Monroe City area.
Okay. And I understand it was called Lucky Point because the Native Americans up there, that was a good hunting ground.
Yeah.
I guess. And the animals would cross there and they'd wait for them and harvest
there
the
was
deer.
An area that was easier for them to travel.
Sure.
And the Indians learned that. And here comes the deer and whatever's up there to hunt, crossing that good spot. So, yeah.
Now, Brian Spangle, he's a Knox County historian. He was with the Knox County Library for years. I talked to him about Lucky Point, and we shared some great stories. That's one of those other mysteries, too, that we really don't know what happened there.
And that guy started Skinwalker Ranch. Have you heard about that?
Oh, yeah, on the Skinwalker Ranch, yes.
I found a very good program. I stayed up too late last night. It was on the History Channel on streaming on the computer, and it's very interesting. There's a scientist out there, and that got my attention too. Again.
Now we're talking to Charlie Kiesel. He's an educator, photographer, as interested in astronomy. A lot going on in Charlie's world. Now let's learn more about Charlie Kiesel. Are you a native of Gibson County, Charlie?
Yeah, my whole life. Actually, I did live in northern Vanderbilt County for a while, first couple of years.
Well, that's pretty close.
Yeah, that's pretty close
right
to
across
Gibson.
the line there.
Yeah, but anyway, most of the time, yes, my whole life in Gibson County.
What'd your family do?
My dad he worked at Whirlpool. He grew up on a farm, and he saw the 1925 tornado. He was walking home about a mile out of Hopstadt, and he looked up there, and he saw it walking home. I never did find out what was a funnel or what he saw, but he saw that in 1925. That's what got me interested.
Walking home from school?
Yeah, he was walking about a mile. He had lived on a farm west of Hopstadt, and he saw it while he walked home from school.
Wow.
Off towards, probably towards Owensville, so it was pretty far away, but he saw it.
And we're going to talk about the 1925 tornado a little bit later. Now, where'd you go to school, Charlie?
Hopstadt High School. 30 people in my class.
30 people?
Small class.
Now, what was it the Elites?
Yeah, Hopstadt Elites. Yeah.
Now, what did that nickname mean?
I have no idea. But I had quite a class. I had 2 people in that class became fighter pilots.
Really?
One of them served, I guess they both served in Vietnam. So a lot of teachers came out of that class, and a lot of good people.
Now, where'd you go to college then?
Oakland City College at the time. Mm-hmm. Graduated in '68 and started teaching in Vincennes that same year. So been a teacher about 50 years. 39 in junior high elementary science and social studies, and 10 years at Oakland City University as an adjunct history instructor. Mm-hmm.
Now, what school did you teach in Vincennes? What school?
I taught up there 5 years, St. John the Baptist. At that time, I've run into a lot of my old students up there. I don't recognize them,
sure.
but somehow they still remember me.
Well, you remember your teachers, of course.
Yeah, and I guess I look close enough than what I used to. But yeah, I've run into a number of them up there. That's nice, but you don't know who you're talking to.
Well, sure, yeah. Now, you're adjunct teacher at Oakland City University. What history classes did you teach there?
Mostly freshman classes, world history, U.S. history. Mm-hmm. That was basically it, for 10 years.
Now, also, have you always been a history nerd, Charlie?
Well, I don't know how I got into it. It was kind of like Peter Toth. We'll talk about him maybe later.
The sculptor, yes.
He came over here as an immigrant from Hungary when the communists came in and took his dad's farm. And he did the same thing I did, about my age. And it was John F. Kennedy, that's not what the country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. So right. I thought, I can't be president, so maybe I'll try being a teacher. So that's how
Peter Toth, of course, he did all these Native American sculptures. We're going to talk about that, too, a little bit later. So we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves. We're going to stick with Gibson County right now. Of course, Gibson County, a lot of history there. Definitely a lot of history. I know I've done some research on the Lyle Station area. Of course, that was the African American community. They had quite a community there. They even had a railroad depot there.
Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah,
active school, businesses, and now they have that great museum there at Lyle Station, and you got to check it out. Now, your home base right now is the Princeton Library. So tell me about the Princeton Library, Charlie.
Well, that's my kind of semi-retirement job, part-time work at the library, and they've got a $4.5 million renovation. It's a beautiful library. They've got a computer lab. They got rooms that are very beautiful that you can rent and have whatever you want, birthday parties or whatever. You can make 3 rooms, or you can pull in the dividers and get a big, huge room. They got a lunch preparation area with icebox and all that. So it's very nice. Got a lot of activities going on, and one of them is my programs that I do. You know, about 3 times a month I do the same 1-hour program, PowerPoint program on whatever topic I choose. That's what's nice.
Yeah, so you pick your own topic.
Yeah, that's nice.
And you try to pick the more bizarre, the unusual?
Sometimes I stumble into them, you know, and I like that stuff. You know, the UFO,
sure.
There's no answer, you know.
No.
It's just interesting, and you don't know what you'll find when you do the research.
So do you get a lot of feedback from the people that come to these lectures?
Yeah, one of them, I told her about Toth. That was one of my programs about all the sculptures he'd done around the world, around the country, about 75 of them, or 74. And she got very interested. She went up to Vincennes, got a picture of that one. They were going to make a trip to Iowa, so she looked up the statue in Iowa. So she was very enthused about his work. People were amazed that he could do that with a hammer and chisel.
Oh, I know it. It is amazing. Of course, genealogy is a big thing at all libraries these days. People have a great interest now in their family trees. Have you been able to trace your family tree, Charlie Kiesel?
I didn't really do much. My aunt, my dad's sister, she was a nun, and she really got into checking out the family history, so I didn't have to do anything. She did all of it.
Did all the background work for you.
I mean, I got it at home, but I couldn't tell you much. You know, I've got a copy of it.
So has your family been in Southwest Indiana a long time?
That I'm not sure of. Some of them came from Germany in the background, and I'm not really.
Been a farming community?
Yeah, a farming group. And I used to go to my cousins, and when they were at home, my first cousins, they were speaking German at home yet. So it's pretty close to, not too long ago.
Wow. Now, we've talked about Charlie's diagnosis of spasmodic dysphonia, a voice disorder that hasn't stopped him, though, from making the lecture circuit on a wide range of topics, from crop circles to historic storms. So let's talk about the deadliest tornado rampage in U.S. history. It tore through the tri-state in March of 1925. The twister first touched down in southeastern Missouri. It raced through southern Illinois, crossing the Wabash River, finally dissipating near Petersburg, Indiana. A 219-mile path covering 3 states, 13 counties, with a total death toll of 695. I think that's still a record for a single tornado. At one point, the storm traveled at a speed of 73 miles per hour. The tornado lasted 3.5 hours with an average path of destruction 3/4 of a mile. Charlie, some incredible devastation. You told me that your father, who was a youngster at the time, coming home from school when he saw something in the air?
Yeah, his farm, he grew up on a farm, and that was about 1.5 miles west of Hobstadt, and he had to walk to school. So he was walking home out in the field, looked up, and he saw the tornado. I never did get the idea of how much he saw, whether it was way off in the distance, it was wide or what, but he remembered that. So that's how I got interested in the tri-state tornado.
I still have this vision of the Wizard of Oz now.
Yeah, I mean, he was way away from it, probably, I don't know, 3 miles from it, 2 or 3 miles, but he remembered it.
Was there damage to his home?
No, it was on beyond west.
Really? So he lucked out.
Yeah, it was way beyond his, but he could see it in the distance, and that's how I got started.
Oh, well, I mean, of course, the Gibson County wasn't spared from the damage from this tornado, and I know you've posted some pictures, too, of some of the devastation. I know Owensville took a hit. Of course, Griffin, Indiana, took a major hit. Princeton also had some damage.
Yeah, mostly to the south end of Princeton, and I think total was 45 people died
Really?
because of the tornado. So it ended a little bit towards Petersburg, lifted up after it got past Princeton. But yeah, there were 45 people killed in the Princeton area.
And I did some research. They estimate winds exceeded 300 miles per hour.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just unbelievable.
Yeah, it might have been up to, sometimes it had 3 funnels coming out of it, so that could have caused damage maybe up to 3 miles.
Oh, yeah.
When all of them were there together, but basically a mile and a half. And it's most deadly in our country, and it still holds the record for the longest path on the ground.
Yeah, that's just incredible.
But it is, in the world, believe it or not, it's the second deadliest in the world. They have tornadoes in Bangladesh, and from what I understand, there were about 1,200 people killed during one of those tornadoes with no warning, crowded conditions.
Sure,
killed
yeah.
about 1,200 people, but in the United States, that's by far the most deadly.
Of course, in 1925, there were no early warnings like we have now. We get several days in advance that we know a system is approaching and to be prepared and have a plan and action.
Yeah.
But
did I tell you about not Lincoln, but Lindbergh?
No, yeah. What's the Charles Lindbergh connection to the?
Okay, he just gotten out of flight school down in Texas and was back in St. Louis, and I could join the National Guard, but he just did whatever he could find to do. Well, the newspapers back then were very competitive, and they wanted to get people in there to get pictures in Murfreesboro. And I think it was the Chicago Tribune got him to fly the glass plates. They had negatives back then that were glass plates. They had the photographer down there, rushed him down, and they had a Lindbergh pick to take him to Chicago to have them developed.
Pictures of the damage.
Yeah, of the damage. And as he picked him up, there was a guy waiting for him, or was supposed to, and he picked up the plates, a big stack of them, and hopped in his plane. I bet it was pretty cold, an open air plane, and headed to Chicago. He had bodyguards when he got up there to make sure the plates didn't get stolen. Well, it turns out when the guy that developed them said there wasn't a thing on any of them. Some other newspaper apparently got in there and caused a problem, so they didn't get the pictures. That was interesting.
So, but of course, Charles Lindbergh went on to become an international.
Maybe that's why he took his flight.
International hero, flying the Spirit of St. Louis, crossing the Atlantic. Charles Lindbergh, though, had some of his other moments that he probably liked to have forgotten in his career.
But yeah, that was interesting. They also had. I think it was a Hearst newspaper. Anyway, someone got a plane to fly over the damaged area of Murfreesboro, and the Jackson County, Illinois, they had a DVD that you could buy that shows the flight. Of course, he's going 90 miles an hour. You can't see too much. So there is video of the damage afterwards. And there was, I don't want to interrupt her too much, but there was also a case where there was a school, I guess in the Murfreesboro area.
A DeSoto school, I think it was.
Yeah, that might have been that too. But anyway, they had a lot of problem with the plaster. When the building came down, some of the kids couldn't hear because the plaster got in their ears.
Oh my gosh.
And then the water, so it was almost like, getting a plaster cast of your ear.
Oh. Yeah, there were 234 deaths in Murfreesboro, Illinois. I think that was the kind of the epicenter for the fatalities there.
Yeah.
And there were 33 deaths at this DeSoto school. So just an incredible tragedy in the mid 1920s. Wow. Now to a totally different topic, Charlie. We talked about Peter Wolf Toth earlier. The Whispering Giants. This is his tribute to the Native Americans. Wooden sculptures created, well, like you said, he said a hammer and a chisel, and getting out of wood. And there's one in Vincennes carved out of black oak. It's a depiction of Tecumseh, and it's quite an achievement, and it's right here in our backyard.
Yeah, he is quite an interesting person. I've talked to him a number of times. And he'll talk to anybody, because he's been used to touring the country. He's just an outgoing person. But the one in Vincennes is about 23 feet tall, and it's a hammer and chisel. to get those out, the logs that are donated or help. He doesn't cut down trees and do it, but he has some that are available. And he said 90% of them are done with hammer and chisel, and then he takes a sander and kind of smooths everything over. After he gets down the chisel, would leave it a little bit rough. So, and then he's done one of the logs he got, about 40,000 pounds. So some of these were very big, carvings, almost unbelievable. So that's what I missed him by one day, and then since I was out looking at that statue, I just stumbled onto it. I went over to George Rogers Clark Memorial. He said, "Well, you just missed him." Well, shoot, I'll call him. So I called him up, and we had a nice long conversation. Matter of fact, I think he was interested in trying to get people to go down to the Amazon. He wants to carve in the middle of the Amazon a statue of an angel holding a child.
Really?
And he's trying to get people together to go with him.
Oh my
There's no way I could do that, but it's a very nice town. 2 million people right along the Amazon.
Yeah.
In the middle of the Amazon rainforest, and that would be an interesting trip, but I think it would probably take him 2 or 3 months. So there's no way I could go down there for 2 or 3 months, but it looks like it's a very safe community. 2 million people, you wouldn't think of that. But I think he was trying to get me to go with him, but I said, no thanks, I can't do that.
Now, he has statues of Native Americans, I believe, in every state, also in Canada?
Yes, in Canada, and he did one of St. Stephen in his home country. He's a Hungarian native. Maybe that's why I got interested in the Native Americans, because he was a native Hungarian, and he left there when the communists came in, and they took over his dad's farm. So the escape came to America. He was in Akron, Ohio for a while. Went to college, did a little bit of psychology, and he learned most of his art from his dad, watching him, but he's busy all the time.
Of course, when his native land was taken over, of course, I guess he can relate to the Native Americans losing their land, too.
Yeah, he was kind of a historian. He actually knew about that before he left Hungary.
Mm-hmm. And now Tecumseh, of course, the statue in Vincennes, a charismatic figure, definitely a poet, of course, a warrior. He negotiated with William Henry Harrison in Vincennes, a revered figure. Also in Canada, I believe, they have many statues to Tecumseh as well, because he fought on the side with the British in 1812 to protect Indian lands. So, but a very interesting guy. And there's a poem, and if you don't mind, can I read this poem? I think this inspired Peter Toft to do this statue, and this is written by Tecumseh. It's called "Live Your Life." And here are a few stanzas from that poem, and this just really is amazing. Okay, I'll read this. "So live your life that the fear of death can never enter your heart. Trouble no one about their religion, respect others in their view, and demand they respect yours. Love your life, perfect your life, beautify all things in your life, seek to make your life long and its purpose in the service of your people. Prepare a noble death song for the day you go over the great divide." The words of Tecumseh, the great Shawnee chief.
Yeah, very nice.
Mm-hmm. Now, during the War of 1812, we mentioned Tecumseh and his followers did join the British to fight the United States, and he was killed in the Battle of Thames in Canada in 1813. Wow, quite a story. So, did you do much research on Tecumseh?
I did most of it on Toth.
And learned about Tecumseh.
Yeah, that's where I started, with him. So Toth is amazing, the stuff he's done, and he's very much into honoring the Indian culture. And many of his statues in the 80s, governors of the state would come and be there at the dedication. Mm-hmm. So he was, a big name in the 80s. I didn't know about him, but I found out a lot about him. He's got a book called Indian Giver. He's got several of them. It's very well written. He traveled the country in a Winnebago, and he got to meet a lot of people. And,
sure.
He did those statues for nothing, didn't charge anything. some of them today, there's one in North Carolina, worth about $1 million, estimated value $1 million, and some of the others are $250,000 appraised value. If you could find anybody to buy them, it's kind of like stamps, or an artwork. But his artwork is worth some money today.
Now, does he? You say he had statues in every state. Do you know where the statue is in Kentucky?
They got one at Paducah, or at least they did. He has to go around and repair a lot of them because of damage from wind and stuff, but Paducah had a statue that he did.
Okay. In Illinois? Do you know where in Illinois?
That I don't know.
We'll have to research that.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to keep track of all of them,
Yeah. I mean, you could make a tour of all the states looking for Peter Toff statues. There we go.
It was amazing, too. I never heard the name Toff before.
Yeah.
And,
T-O-T-H, right?
Yeah, and there was a yard sale in Fort Branch, a citywide yard sale. And I didn't have many people. I just threw my stuff out on the driveway real quickly, but I had a couple of people walk up, of all names, Toth. I'd never heard that name around here before, and they chose my driveway to come and visit me. I thought that was a nice coincidence.
Now, before we forget, who is Donna Baum?
She is a artist, her and her husband in Vincennes, Indiana. He's got watercolors, and he also did charcoal. I think she did too. And the Park Service in Vincennes is giving those out about Tecumseh. I might take that over to the Tecumseh junior high school around Linville, and see if they've got that. But I thought it was a very good artwork, and he has got about 11,000 watercolors and that kind of drawing that he's put in Vincennes Community Foundation. I give it to them. He's not in very good health, and his wife died a couple of years ago. But that's how I got interested in that,
And Donna, did she contact Peter Toff then?
She was the one who was instrumental in getting him to come to Vincennes. Yes, he did.
Well, that's great. That's a great story. Now, we've talked about Charlie's struggle with the voice disorder, spasmodic dysphonia, crop circles, the tornado of 1925, and the whispering giant sculptures of a Hungarian-born artist, Peter Wolf Toff, whose black oak carving of Tecumseh is now on display in Vincennes. Where in Vincennes, Charlie?
They've got a river walk up there. It's pretty close to the old French house, within a block of that. And they've got a river walk that starts at the George Rogers Clark Bridge and goes to the east. And at the end of that, they've got the statue.
So that's where you can check it out, folks. Now,
or if you go all the way in on Hart Street, you can't miss it. Just go all through town.
Okay, good. Now, we went back to 1925, to the tornado. Now, there's a marker, I believe, in Griffin, Indiana, that names all the victims of the tornado there.
Yeah, they've got a stone there, and they've got an area kind of made remembrance of that happening. They got a little gazebo-like, and they got a huge panorama of the main street that shows, what the damage was. So it's kind of a nice memorial to the people that died.
Yeah, that is. Now, let's go to Chimney Pier Hills. Now, where's that at?
Okay, close to St. Thomas, and where's that?
Yeah, where's St. Thomas?
It's about 8 miles south of Vincennes, about a mile west of 41. There's a parish there, a Catholic parish. And I stumbled onto that while I was looking at something else, curious about something else, and there was a page in the 1905 Vincennes newspaper.
1905.
1905.
Sun commercial? Or whatever.
It was.
Or the commercial, or whatever.
They were close to that, yeah.
Or the Sun.
Yeah, they changed the names a few times. But anyway, I found that, and it was almost a whole page interviewing two people that lived in the St. Thomas area. And they talked about a kind of a chimney rock kind of formation, kind of like jug rock, it's an unusual formation.
Shoals,
yeah. This is a chimney pier. It's just like a chimney. It was on the edge of a hill, the Chimney Pier Hills. It was on the north end of that, best we can figure. And people in the area had passed that story down, it was no longer there. Indians, according to the newspaper article, made steps in it so they could climb to the top and use it for an observation area. There were all kinds of rumors about lead being found there. There's something called Bullet Rock, which is a flat rock supposed to have holes in it that maybe lead was poured into to make bullets. Now, I can't imagine Indians being too interested in bullets. They probably would rather have bow and arrows. But anyway, I don't know if that's what was used for, but it's a flat rock about 5 times as big as this table. And I didn't see any holes in it, but there was a case over the Jug Rock, at the bottom of Jug Rock. It's got a bunch of holes in it. And what they are, there used to be like marble-sized quartz crystals that would fall out whenever the sandstone eroded. So that might have been what was that Bullet Rock. It may not have been used for make bullets, but they did find some lead in that area. So the lead would have come probably from glaciers carrying it in. So I don't know about that part. But anyway, it looks like if you stand in the backyard of St. Thomas Church and look over towards the hills, that's where it would have been, standing on the brow of the hill.
So the rock is no longer there?
It's no longer there. It disappeared. The guy that gave the article interview said it just disappeared. He didn't know how.
Well, how large a rock was this that disappeared?
Okay, it was a chimney, kind of like a column.
Right.
Best I can figure, it was about 35 feet tall, maybe 6-8 feet wide. And the story goes, I found in history books, of course you can't always go on all that either, but it said it was blown up, exploded to use a stone to make a well.
Okay.
And that, to me, I'm not that much of a scientist, but to me, I think sandstone that hasn't eroded away would be very good. You know, not permeable, water can't soak through it as well as some other sandstone. Then I found, by accident, I was looking for Indian mounds, and I came across one about 3 miles east of Chimney Pier. I stopped and talked to the guy. He said, no, that's not an Indian mound. They built a well, a cistern, out of sandstone. So it got me thinking, is that where the sandstone ended up to make that well, that cistern? And what they did is they started on a flat surface. They put the sandstone down. Then they built a round of sandstone like brick, and they kept going up, and then they piled dirt against it. So you kind of build it up as you were, in other words, you didn't have to get down in it to build it. You could build it from the outside and then just build the dirt up around it. So you end up with this mound with a cistern built into it. And in the spring, they would pump water into it from the river using a windmill. And then in the summer, when there was an orchard there after sometime between the Civil War and 1900, that's what the owner told me. They built this, and in the summer, they would use that same windmill to pump water out into the fields during the dry season. You know, a lot of places up there are irrigated now. And they would pump water out of that cistern and use it that way.
So that may solve the mystery of the missing rock. We don't know.
Well, it was blowing up, apparently, and it was all kinds. There's not much on it. I contacted the Geological Society at different universities. Nobody knew anything about it.
Wow.
But the people locally knew the story, you know, because it had been passed down.
That's great. That's great. Now, you're an avid photographer. You take shots of wildlife and, of course, the heavens. And you really get excited when there's a comet slicing through the night sky, especially the HALE-BOPP comet.
Yeah, I got interested in that because I heard those stories about 1910, about the comet, how Halley's comet came by, and I always wanted to see that. I hoped I could see one in my lifetime. Well, 2 years in a row, there were 2 of them, HALE-BOPP and Hyakutake. Beautiful, long tails on them, beautiful. And HALE-BOPP, I could go out there probably about 4 or 5 months. Every night it was a little different. It started off just like a little fuzzy star. It got different every night. So I would get up every evening or morning where it was out there. And the weather was good. I'd go out there and take pictures. I spent $230 having film developed. Yeah. So I spent a lot of money.
And you have a special device on your camera?
Well, the best one I took, most of them were 15-second exposures, and had an equatorial mount, and I took the telescope part off and built my own mount to put my camera on. Mm-hmm. And then I bought a $110 electric gear machine that would turn turn the camera as the evening moved on. You know, the stars, they get blurred because the Earth is rotating. And I got a 5-minute exposure, and that was a pretty good one. It was a beautiful comet. And I got it on Facebook, not on Facebook, but I got it on YouTube. I've had 10,000 people look at the little video I made. You know, I took the pictures and turned them into a video. So that was interesting. I loved that comet. And it was a nice answer to my prayer. You know, I got to see 2 beautiful comets.
Now, your late wife, Jan, I know she shared a lot of your adventures with you.
Yeah, she was a spark, too. She really got things going for her. She liked to do everything, skydiving, you know, all that. And we went up to Lucky Point together. She was all very sick already. And so we just had fun doing all this stuff.
What did she do for a living?
She was a teacher. She graduated from U of E, taught at Memorial, had a chemistry biology degree. Got a real estate broker's license. Really liked that because she loves people, you know. And I actually put a book together. She wrote a little thing about happenings, and she had things. Some of them were strange, really strange. I mean, we always have lights go off in a parking lot, but that could be your headlights doing that. But she wrote all this stuff down. And one time, she worked at a semi-retirement job as a greeter at Walmart. You couldn't find a better greeter. She loved everybody, had a beautiful smile. And anyway, one day she was out there, and she looked out the door. She thought she saw somebody coming that she knew. They came in. It wasn't the person she thought it was. Wasn't a minute later, that person came in that she had been thinking about. I mean, she had unusual things like that.
So she liked the... maybe the paranormal as well? Interesting.
She was interested in that.
Yeah. So we're going to talk now about Charlie Kiesel's bucket list. What do you still want to do, Charlie? What are you still interested in?
I don't know.
Whatever comes around.
My soul and inspiration is gone, so I just find something that stumble onto it. It's interesting. I watched, I told you earlier, I watched Skinwalker on the History Channel. That may solve a lot of problems so they can figure out what's going on there. I mean, there's something, people, I told you about my own sighting. Did you see that picture of the ball, big ball out the car window?
No.
Okay. Anyway, I'll see if I can find that. But anyway, there's something going on at crop circles or whatever. It may be all natural, but we don't know what causes certain things, like people, seeing balls of light and that kind of thing. And my wife and I, this is one of the things we participated in together, and you can make of it what you want. We were driving down up Highway 41 south of Darmstadt, and about where old 57 used to come in, and we looked up, and my wife, it says 12 noon. Clouds, just medium-high clouds. It was cloudy, but not that bad. It was really bright outside. She looked up the road and said, that plane's going to hit us. It looked like the landing light on a plane. And kept coming towards us, and it's going to hit us. And the next thing I knew, I was watching my driving. I was going 60 miles an hour. I watched my driving. Next thing I knew, I looked out the window. Here was this beautiful blue-white ball of light, and it was swirling on the surface, like you put oil in water. It was swirling on that surface. I don't know what it was. I have no clue.
In broad daylight?
Yes, it was noon, and it was traveling with me, or I couldn't have seen the detail. So why it traveled with the car unless it was magnetic? It didn't do anything to the engine, didn't do anything to the radio. There it was, right outside my car window.
Well, how long did it last?
I don't know, 10 seconds at the most, but my wife, I think she was more worried about it hitting us, and she must have followed it all the way in, and it kind of disappeared, but it was over on my side. I looked out the window. There it was, and it was blue-white, beautiful blue-white color, and it may be on my flash drive I gave you. It may be on there, but there was a guy passed me. There was nothing on the news. So me and her was the only one that saw it, and that happens a lot of times. It's, different cases. But the guy was past me in a pickup truck, And, I looked over him like, did you see that? You're just going down the road.
Oh, my gosh.
I mean, you can take that and for what it's worth to you, but it happened. I don't know why, how. It may have just been a mental thing between Jan and me, and whatever that light was. It might have been a plasma electrical thing. I have no clue. But that's why I can kind of understand people who see things and then nobody believes them, because I've seen it.
Well, yeah, you talk to people and they have these incredible stories, and people kind of, well, I don't know, but to them, I mean, it happened. It's real. It's a memory, and something happened.
You don't know what happened. I don't know if it was psychological. Someone, a crop circle expert in the Netherlands, I sent her that story I just told you, and she thought, well, it was reaching a higher level of consciousness. I don't know. I can't claim nothing for anything.
So, is there any place you want to visit? Any bizarre site, or are you?
I may go back to Lucky Point. They're supposed to have a museum. Kerry Dean, I think he used to be a meteorologist here in Evansville Station somewhere. Kerry Dean.
I've heard that name, yeah.
Yeah, it's been years ago, but he supposedly he was a MUFON, not crop circle, but UFO investigating group, and he's got a lot of reports that people gave him in that area. And he's supposed to have them filed away. So I'd like to get a hold of those. But they got a Blue Jean Community Center or Foundation. I've called them. I can't get a hold of them. Maybe they've disappeared. But anyway, I may go back up there sometime.
So now you continue your lecture series. I know Princeton Library, you do a lot there. So what are some of your lectures about?
Okay, well, I've got a whole list. Peter Toth, some of our vacations, we went up to New England, the old history of places like Lexington and Concord, that kind of thing. They do that one. What else have I done here? Peter Toth, I really got into that one. And the one at Vincennes, I may do these other places. The one at Vincennes, I had 30 people. I had two separate programs, one of them at the Knox County Library, one of them at the Parish Center where I used to teach, and I had 15 people come to each of those. Some of them lived out in that area because they had heard it from their parents or grandparents. So that was interesting to have that many people show up. So what else have I got on here? Oh, owls, eagles, and harriers, those pictures of all the I never knew there were owls around here that you go photograph. I found that out last year. So
and you've seen bald eagles around here, haven't you?
Yeah, there's a lot of them down around the Duke Energy Power Plant. There's another one up there that's kind of controversial. Jefferson Davis Boulder. Have you ever heard that?
Jefferson Davis's Boulder.
Yeah. Okay, supposedly Zachary Taylor's daughter and Jefferson Davis fell in love. And remember Zachary Taylor, he became president of the North, and Jefferson Davis president of the South. That was odd. There was a lot of rumors that they used to meet at a certain location, maybe out in the woods or something, a stone, a huge rock, and that would kind of be the rendezvous point to meet with each other. And that had pretty well been debunked. That rock got kicked around all around Vincennes. It was out at Fort Knox, too. It's been in people's yards that had connections with it. It's now at the old French house. It actually, at one time, they thought it was a meteor, but it was a boulder made of granite that came down with the glaciers, which is unusual in itself to find one of those, But anyway, supposedly they rendezvoused at that location, and that's
so. What was Zachary Taylor's daughter and
Sarah.
Jefferson Davis's?
Well, those two.
Yeah.
Jefferson Davis. And,
what were they doing in the Vincennes area?
Well, Fort Knox. That's another problem. She was born there. Her middle name was Knox, Sarah Knox Taylor.
Okay.
And then her dad got transferred way up north, and Wisconsin, and Jefferson Davis ended up in Louisville, but they still wanted to meet. According to the article I read, I found the newspaper article, and all the other articles talked about it was too early. She was too young for them to have a relationship at that time. So found out this article was written by a prominent banker in Vincennes in 1960. It was published down in Fort Lauderdale by a reputable reporter, and they apparently rendezvoused in Vincennes because she had apparently maybe had some friends there when she was younger and babysat for her, and that's how they would meet.
And that was their rendezvous at this rock.
Yeah, that was the story.
Okay. Well, that's another one.
It's not a very comfortable-looking rock, but I guess I can sit there and talk.
But it's no one knows where it's at now.
Yeah, it's at the old French house, and most of the historians in Vincennes, they don't think it happened.
Okay.
But I found that interesting article.
Well, Charlie, this has been a lot of fun exploring all these maybe myths, and who knows if they're true or not, but whatever. So keep doing what you've been doing best, bringing us stories that educate and delight us, and of course asking us for more and more. Charlie Kiesel, thanks for being my guest.
Okay, thank you for inviting me.
I'm David James, and this is 2 Main Street, presented by Jeffrey Berger of Berger Wealth Services at Bayard Private Wealth Management.